This is a service to
Strayatrains.
stopping all stations direct to
Strayatrains. Welcome back to Strayatrains. In this video we're going to take a look at the ins and the outs of the Werribee Line. Let's start off with a quick overview. It is served by Metro's Command, Siemens and Extrapolis fleet. The line is a total of 16 stations long, 8 of them are Werribee Line exclusive and 3 of those 8 lie on the Altona Loop, making this line's operation by far one of the most interesting across the network. It serves the southwestern suburbs of Metro Melbourne. It is part of the Cross City group, giving it the colour map green. The line code is WBE and the down service terminations are Laverton and Werribee. Now let's take a look at service notes. In terms of the loop direction, the Werribee trains are a through line, which means they don't actually use the city loop. However, before the Jan 31 timetable change in 2021, when they did utilise the city loop, they were part of the northern loop, which is platforms 3. However, now they typically depart Flinders Street platform 9, but sometimes 8, 10 and 12, utilise Southern Cross Station platform 13 on the up and platform 14 on the down. During weekdays in between peak AM and peak PM, the typical Werribee service is actually a limited express that stops all to North Melbourne, runs express from North Melbourne to Footscray, Footscray to Newport, Newport to Laverton, then stops all to Werribee. All of these services originate from Flinders Street. However, the stops all Laverton service that does include stopping at the Altona Loop stations is actually an ex-Frankston service that departs Flinders Street about 2 minutes after the limited express Werribee service. However, during peak time, sometimes it's a little bit changed where Werribee services might originate at Frankston and Laverton services might originate at Flinders Street. However, off-peak, this is usually what happens. Werribee originates from Flinders Street and Laverton from Frankston. Once the peak is completed in the PM, the Laverton services are no longer and they just turn into stops all Werribee services. Similar to how the weekend operates, where it is just a stops all Werribee service from Frankston and there is no Laverton terminating service. In terms of service frequency, all Werribee Limited Express service on weekdays run at a 20-minute frequency, and then the stops all Laverton service that departs 2 minutes later also runs on that 20-minute frequency. During peak, whilst the Laverton services remain at a 20-minute frequency, the Werribee services are halved from 20 minutes to a 10-minute frequency. And then on weekends, all Werribee stops all services remain at that 20-minute frequency. Regarding travel tips, there isn't too much to it. The Werribee line is quite straightforward. However, the 2 tips I'd have to say is, number 1, if you are travelling to Laverton Station on the down direction and you've just missed a limited express Werribee train, even though the next one will be that stops all Laverton train, just take that as it will get to Laverton before the next limited express Werribee train does, even though it has to travel via the Altona Loop. And also, if you're travelling on the up on a Werribee/Laverton train and you want to head to the City Loop, get off at Southern Cross Station and head to platform 9, or after the Burnley switch you can also include platform 10, as those trains run from Southern Cross straight into the City Loop, being Flagstaff, Melbourne Central and then Parliament. In terms of the Werribee line improvements, it's kind of an interesting one. There's not really too much you can do. In terms of the Altona Loop, I guess duplication there is one, but being that the patronage isn't too high at those stations, it really isn't necessary. And then to combat it, in terms of getting more patrons to Werribee quicker, you could just change the services between AM peak and PM peak to a 10-minute frequency through the entirety of the actual day instead of the typical 20 minutes. And again, that is still very minor to an extent. The only real major change, or in terms of policy, would have to be the Geelong Fast Rail to increase services to Werribee, and also a Metro Tunnel 2 connecting the Werribee line and possibly further out west with the northeastern suburbs of Melbourne. That in itself would probably require an entirely separate video, so we won't talk about that here. And a cool story to conclude has to be the fact that for a few months during 1985, Westonia Station was actually the terminus of the Altona line. From the early to mid 1980s, there were works done and plans to extend the line all the way from Altona to Laverton Station to connect it back to the Werribee main line. On January 20, 1985, Westona Station opened, however only April 11, 1985 did the connection to Laverton be completed and open, so for those few months, Westona was the terminus of the Altona Line, and that means for a few months there was a thing called a Westona service. How interesting, and something I don't think we'd ever see again. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed or learned a thing or two about the Werribee Line, and I think we'll leave it at that. Cheers!